Hello everybody, welcome to this new Pix4D webinar. My name is Olivier Kung, I'm one of the co-founders of Pix4D, and I welcome you to this webinar. And I also apologize for the little technical issue we just had that restarted the GoToWebinar interface. So excuse us for that and the 10 minutes delay. And now let's get starting into the Pix4Dmapper Capture App webinar. And I thought it was appropriate to start it with that sound. All right, today we're going to talk about the Capture app, what it's really doing, how it can be used, what are the new features upcoming to it, and what are a bunch of tips and tricks on how to nicely use this app and what's coming up next for this application. So the Capture app at the essence is a way to control your DJI Phantom 2 vision, right? The one that has this camera. And that allows to turn it into a really nice mapping tool. And basically, that's the whole session webinar, how it's going to be presented. I'm going to go mostly on 4 different topics. The first one is about mission planning. And this happens on the Capture app phone. And I'm going to talk about how to optimize your grid flight and the free flight, what is the difference and how can they be used optimally. Then we're going to talk about when the drone is flying, what is happening there, and what are the safety measures to make sure that you are checking while you're flying that. Then third, we're going to talk about how the synchronization of the images that go from the drone to the phone is happening. And then I'm very happy that I can introduce today our new feature, which is the quick 3D preview, which is happening on our cloud infrastructure. As well, I'll also talk about the advanced outputs and editing on the computer that you can do using a Pix4Dmapper desktop licenses on your computer, and you can do. I'm going to show a bit what are the advanced features you can do with this whole workflow. All right, now this is basically the workflow. I'm going to first give a few notes about, for the current user of the app, that we have Android and we have an iOS version. I just heard from my support team that I'm not visible, so I'm restarting the webcam, and there should appear. All right, so on the Android version, this is the one that we are releasing first, and this is the one that has always the most of the updates. So the current version is the 0 at the time of recording this webinar, is 0.2.5, and the next release is going to happen next week, and this one will introduce the quick upload feature that I'm going to talk a bit later on. The next big release of the app is going to happen in about end of April, and it's going to be the 0.3, which will one of the main features that's been requested most by mail to our support and everywhere is basically the fact that you can change the altitude of the grid mission. Now, for reference, the iOS version on iPhone is usually 2 weeks to 1 month later than the features on Android. So the current version is quite delayed right now versus the Android version, so it's 0.1.4. At the end of the month, if the app people from Apple are not too complicated, then we're going to release the 0.2 version, and this one will almost be equivalent to the current Android version. So at that stage, they will be very, very close to each other. That's just to, and then usually I get this other question, which is very often asked. It's which drone can I use? Which one is optimal? And I guess you can already read from this slide that the DJI Inspire one indeed is going to come soon. So I promised my developers back in the team there that I wouldn't give a precise date on exactly when it's going to be released, but basically expect to have the Inspire one support within 2 months. At the same time, we'll probably also launch, so by mid of 2015, the support with the same app to control the Parrot Bebop, as well as the 3D robotic drones, all in our nice integrated app. But now the state of today, if we go back to today, the app is really designed to work best with the Phantom 2 Vision Plus. This is the optimal drone to fly with the app. The Vision, which is not the Plus, is very similar, but it doesn't allow you to rotate the camera, and thus you cannot look right down to the ground. And it doesn't. It's possible to use it. It works, but it's you may have not the optimal results when you're doing like fields, for example. The DJI Phantom 1 and 2 are not supported by the app, so you cannot control the drone by the app. However, in terms of geotag, if you use the Phantom 2 Vision without our app, you will not have good geotags. However, if you do, then it's working perfectly. Same for the 2. And the 1 and 2, first, you cannot use our app. And in addition, you won't get the geotag after you fly it if you put a GoPro, for example, or whatever other camera. So there it's required to have an external GPS tracker. And for the Inspire 1 and all the other drones, the geotags will be also nicely supported. Now the good news is that even if you don't have the optimal flight plan and the geotags are not there, already now all the images can be processed in Pix4Dmapper. So the software, the desktop software, supports all of these images. However, you have a better chance of better accuracy and better reliability of the results if you've done it through our app, or if you read very carefully what are our requirements and our suggestions for optimal flight paths. All right, so now I'm going back to this presentation. So let's first talk about mission planning. So when you start the Pix4Dmapper Capture app, you are greeted with the grid mission and the free flight mission on Android. On iOS, the free flight mission is not there yet. It's going to come in a very quite soon in a further update. So the grid mission. The reason we did this grid mission is because with a grid mission, you can be certain, like 99.9% of the time, that you're going to get accurate and reliable results. Because to get accurate and reliable results, it's mostly a matter of consistent overlap. And by doing this grid and the settings we set in the grid, so the grid is kind of by default a 50 by 50 meter grid, and we take images every few seconds in such a way that we know that the overlap on the ground is very, very good. And this is basically optimal for most of the environments. In the settings, which is this little button there, you have actually right now, this is the place where you can change the size of the grid and the orientation of the grid too. Just one thing, we don't know really the battery, we don't know how long the drone's going to fly. If there's a lot of wind, if it's cold, then the drone might fly not as long as on another day. So depending on the battery status and so on, you may not be able to do all the grid size as normal. Okay, so I started now talking about the grid mission and the mission planning. So as said, the grid mission is the one that works for most of the environments. However, we also introduced the free flight mission, and this one is for mapping more difficult objects. And especially when you have sides of buildings, side of houses, you need to do the side of the tower and everything which basically requires more side view than the simple view from the down, then basically the free flight is the most appropriate. However, first of all, it requires really much better drone piloting skills because it's yourself piloting the drone. And then it also requires an understanding of what's an optimal flight path. I would really recommend to watch the webinar on optimal flight path to really understand what's the impact of a flight path on the likelihood of getting a good result. And also, I would also hint that it would be nice also to avoid putting the camera watching directly straight, because in this case you will have very likely most of the picture will be sky and only a little part of the picture is going to be the subject of interest. And this is something which is not at all optimal for 3D reconstruction. So if you can always try to have the camera, even in free flight mode, pointing slightly to the bottom, you'll always have better results than if you are watching straight there. Coming soon, so in Capture app version 0.3, we'll have the possibility to change the altitude in the grid mission, and also we are right now rewriting the whole interface so that you can nicely put the grid and rotate it and place it and have much more flexibility in terms of sizes of grid and altitude, and to have something very nicely integrated there. So we heard the suggestions for improving that, and we are working on this right now. Okay. First of all, maybe I would just go one step back, and I would suggest that for everybody that's about to use the app, to really go on our support website, support.pix4D.com, and to first read the Getting Started manual. The Getting Started is really the one that's going to give you step-by-step what do you have to do, which device do you have to power on, how do you need to start, which button do you need to click or to touch, and these are very detailed, and I'm not going to talk about that right now. This is a bit too detailed for this discussion. Now I'm going to give more general tips of what can be done or not be done. So anyway, for first-time user, I would really recommend to read our Getting Started and guide, and this Getting Started guide is exactly the same guide that you have when you touch the tutorial help button there. So let's pretend that you've been following this guide, and now the drone, you clicked on, you placed your mission, you choose the grid mission, and you started flying with the drone. So something very important to understand is that the drone, the Phantom Vision Plus, is an autonomous self-driven drone. Our application is only connected through Wi-Fi to the drone, and the only thing that actually we can do is send a list of waypoints to the drone using the Wi-Fi connection. We are not telling the drone to go left, right, or up, down. The only thing we are telling to the drone is we give a list of GPS points, and then the drone is free to follow this list of GPS points. Another thing to understand is that if the Wi-Fi connection is broken between your drone and the app, well, because of the way that the drone is designed, the images are not taken anymore. So whenever the connection is broken, the images are not taken anymore. However, the drone continues to fly its mission because this doesn't require Wi-Fi. Going from one waypoint to the other doesn't require any Wi-Fi. It's just for taking images and to give the list of waypoints to the drone at the beginning of the mission. Now, it may happen that the drone has some internal interference, and it misreads the internal GPS signal. And then instead of believing that it's nicely in the middle of the field, it starts getting a bit crazy, and it thinks that it's actually, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the US or in Australia or somewhere there. And it's going to try to go to the GPS waypoint that we told him to go, but since he doesn't know where it is right now, it will going to look like it's going to fly in a random direction. This happened very rarely, but we have to warn everybody that this is something that is a possibility, and this is due to the internal GPS of the drone. And when we saw this happening, usually is when you are very close by from large metallic structure, which is messing up with the compass of the drone, as well as if you are in places where the signal of the GPS is bouncing back, and basically the drone believes it's at another place than where it is for real. And for that, we really recommend to always keep the remote control in hand and turned on. More on that just a bit later. Another thing to be cautious of is to make sure that when you fly, you are, by default, the grid is at 50 meters for now. Later on, you will be able to adjust it. But when you're at 50 meters, it's 50 meters above your home position, the place where you started the drone. And make sure that nothing is at this altitude, otherwise the drone's going to bang in it. Another thing is about low battery. Here I'll clarify what's the app and what the drone behavior when you have low battery. So first thing is it's impossible to really predict the time of flight. And this is due for the thing I explained just before. Because of the wind, the altitude, the temperature, the battery may have like a life of 5 minutes up to half an hour, and it's very hard to predict in advance how long it's going to fly. So if the app is connected in Wi-Fi, so if the Wi-Fi is not broken between the drone and the app, and that the battery goes under 20%, then the drone basically is given the signal by the app to automatically fly back to the home position. So it's going to directly go back home, and then it's going to land. However, if for some reason maybe you turned off the phone, or you have lots of interferences, if the Wi-Fi is broken and the battery is under 15% of charge, then the drone is going to land right where it is. So it's not going to try to attempt to come back home. It's going to land to go down by itself, and so on. So for example, if you fly over a dangerous area or anything like that, and your battery is really down and the Wi-Fi is broken, then this is really a time where you should take back manual control. And by taking manual control, all this, what I just said, doesn't apply anymore, and you can do whatever you want, like bring it back to a safe place. So maybe I'll just repeat it once again, because it's that important, and we care about the safety of our users, the safety of their hardware, and we really advise everybody that before you use the app, you always turn the remote control on before flying. So you not only have the control in hand, but you also turn it on. The few cases where we saw the thing I just explained before of drones behaving in weird way was when most of these instances, it was when the remote control was not taken in hand, ready to get back in manual mode. And as I said, manual mode is the only way to recover a drone that flies away because the GPS gets crazy. That's for sure. But another thing to remember is also manual mode is the only way to avoid unexpected obstacles. If something happens, a helicopter drives in, or kids start to go by and so on, the manual mode is the only way you can basically really nicely take control and make sure that to put the drone in a safe place. Now another little tip of a few failed projects that we've seen happening is make sure that the camera is nicely pointing down. And by pointing down, actually in the app, in the settings, it means have it at 90 degrees. So 90 degrees means looking down, and 0 degree means looking forward. It happens that the gimbal doesn't get initialized properly at the beginning of a mission. So when it flies and the gimbal looks just straight, then you won't get a good mission. However, when in the app, when you look in the live view, you can change manually the position of the gimbal, and you can put the camera back down. So if this happens and that the camera is watching straight, in the middle of the mission, you can basically make it turn down. Okay, 2 more general drone tips. Check at the beginning of the mission if all the 4 propellers are indeed working well. And also we recommend not to fly over crowds and to respect your regional and national regulation. Okay, so let's summarize. You did the mission on the app. The drone started to fly. It took pictures, and now it's flying back to the home position. While it's coming back to the home position, the images and the geotags are synchronized from the drone to the phone. So you will see that it starts appearing something synchronization happening, and you'll see that the images are starting to get downloaded from the drone to the app. If the synchronization fails because Wi-Fi gets disrupted or it was cancelled, it is possible to sync to restart the synchronization between the images of the drone and the app in the mission manager page. The mission manager page being the little button which is at the bottom right. This is something this feature is going to come in 0.2.6 in just a few weeks. We'll also be able soon to disable entirely the synchronization of the images in the drone, but the accurate geotags of the missions are always transmitted to the phone. That's a small text file that's always gets in the phone. But for more efficiency in certain situations, also going to be able to disable the full synchronization. But for the first time you use the phone, by default it's going to be on. And that's something now I'm very happy to introduce, is our quick 3D preview feature. Basically, after synchronizing of the images from the drone to the phone, you basically turn your drone off, and then in the app you have a button to click upload to Pix4D cloud server. And you can do that with 4G on Wi-Fi connection. And that's one of the new features that's going to be released in a few weeks, is basically that we can upload much smaller images to our cloud service, which means that a data set of 60 images would take something like between 2 and 10 minutes to get uploaded to our cloud infrastructure, depending if you're on 4G or on 3G network. Right now, right from today, you can already do that, especially not in the iOS but in the Android version. However, since the image are the full resolution, the project is a bit larger and it takes a bit longer to upload the images on the cloud. And basically what's happening, and this is we're going to launch this feature in just a few days. After a quick upload on pressing upload button, you will receive a mail telling you that the processing started, and then just after that you'll receive another notification, which is basically a link to a web link to your browser, and in the browser you basically have access to the 3D model of the environment you just computed just before. And this is compatible with every Android phone that has the Chrome browser, as well as every iPhone that has the iOS 8 or newer. And basically this quick 3D preview allows you, without any computer, without anything, for small projects, you can do it within a few minutes of uploading the images and getting directly the 3D results on your phone, that you can basically get the whole understanding of what's happening. This is, of course, that's a service that we just added, and this is accessible if you've got a valid Pix4Dmapper license. But that's not the only way to get back the images and to start doing something. Actually, this is really about having, while you're on the field, while you're still at the places where you did your flight, this is to get an understanding of the 3D model and getting an understanding of what's happening, if everything works well or not. If you want to do more advanced things, then we really recommend to use our very powerful desktop application, which is Pix4Dmapper. And this one allows you to do many more outputs. It allows you to do some editing, as we will see later. But first of all, how do you get the images from the drone to your computer? And for that, we basically have 3 solutions to do that. The first one is basically you can download the images from mapper.pix4d.com if you have used our Pix4D cloud to do the quick 3D preview. So from the interface, you basically go to your account, mapper.pix4d.com, you see your projects. These are the projects that I just uploaded, and there you have a button to download your images, such as you can download them back to your computer and then reprocess them using Pix4Dmapper desktop application. This is the first way to actually get back the images from your drone to your computer. The second one, which is also very, very efficient, is you take your drone, you take the SD card from your drone, and you plug it in your computer. However, here what you'll do is you'll only copy the images. The drone doesn't record accurate geotags. Okay, the Phantom Vision Plus does not record accurate geotags. And if you start a project without accurate geotags, then you may have the project upside down, not the right position, not the right orientation, and not the right scale. So there we have also a solution for that. And this is basically you transfer the project file the Pix4D project file, and this one contains the right geotags. So after your flight, even if you canceled the copying of the images from the drone to the phone, then however you still have on the phone the P4D file, the project file that contains the accurate geotags. To do so, you go in the button Mission Manager, and in the Mission Manager there is a button on the top of the page, which basically is about, it's called Share Project File, and you can send it either by email, by Dropbox, or you can even plug a USB cable in your phone and transfer it with your favorite Android file manager, or with iOS you have to use iTunes, and we have the instruction on how to do that on our website, on the support website. The third way, but that's it's a bit less obvious why you would like to do that, but it's also possible to do that, is at the end of the mission, the drone will land, synchronize the images from the drone to the phone, and then what you can do is you can directly connect the phone through USB to your computer and transfer the images as well as the P4D file, which is the project file, and the project file contains the accurate geotags. Then once you've copied this file on your computer, well, you need, of course, a copy of Pix4Dmapper software that you can download. There's a version that you can download for free at Pix4D.com. It's Windows only, but I can already tell you that we have a Mac version coming up this year, so very soon also for Mac. And you basically, if the software is properly installed, then you just have to click on the P4D file, and the software will open, and you have to click on Start Processing. You don't have to go through any wizards, through any steps. And after a few minutes, you'll have the 3D model that will be appearing on your computer. And there, I'd like to just go a bit further into, if you actually are at that step, is you'd like to do more things, and you can do a lot more things than just having this 3D mesh on your phone. And the things I think are the most important or the most interesting that you could do is, first, you have a way to improve even more the quality of the 3D model by doing some manual intervention. And I'm going to go quickly over how you can do that. I'm going to show how to make a quick video animation so that you can easily share, like put on YouTube, the cool video of the mesh you did. And also how to make very accurate measurements using this device. And for that, I'm gonna show a quick mission. So this project was done with the Pix4Dmapper capture app, of course, and it was done as a quite large grid that was flown over, actually this is our offices, this is EPFL in Switzerland, and this is where we work, so we do a lot of trial there. And this was quite a large mission that we did with the app. We then transferred the images using the phone, that we transferred the images we synchronized the drone to the phone, and then the phone, we copied the images through USB to our computer, and we started the processing by clicking Start. And after a little bit, this is the results of the 3D mesh that appears. Now, let's analyze a little bit what's happening there. So because the buildings are quite high, you can see that there's a lot of pictures of the facade. And because of the fisheye, most of the facade are pretty well reconstructed. So in this particular case, it's pretty good, it's pretty well accurate. However, in some of the side of, especially the one on the side of the like for example this one, this side of building was not well reconstructed. The reason is basically we are on the side of the project and there was almost no images viewing this angle. If we wanted to have a very nice reconstruction of this particular facade, then we would have needed to use the free flight mode and to do some oblique imagery from the side by orienting a little bit the camera maybe at 45 degrees and flying closer to this building. So anyway, even in that case, if it happens very often when we look not at the triangle mesh and not at the densified point cloud, but we watch at the automatic points, that there are some places where we can improve furthermore the accuracy. For example, in a place where you don't have many points of the initial automatic tie point, you can click on one and you can do something that we called manual tie points editing. And basically what we are doing there, we are helping the software to better align the imagery. And if the images are better aligned and we start the reprocessing again, then the quality of the whole 3D mesh and the quality of the whole point cloud and everything is going to be much more improved. So I'm going quickly to show, to get a better 3D model, basically you have to go in you have to display the automatic tie points, which are here. You select a place where you think the quality is not sufficient, or you think there's something that went a bit wrong. You click on a point, that should be easy to detect. And then you click on that little icon there, which is called New Tie Point. Then what you have to do is you have to identify a single feature of all these images, and you have to click on this particular feature on every single image, on as many images as possible. And you have to do that quite accurately. If you do it a bit like you click in a not very accurate way, then it's not worth doing that. You're going to actually even introduce more problem in the model than improve it. So you've got to be quite careful in what you do. And you click on the same corner in most of the images. And if the green cross is already at the right spot, there you can see it's just 1 pixel away. If the green cross is already on the right location, you don't necessarily need to click. You can move on. But if it's not, then it's definitely worth clicking on it. After clicking, you click on the button Apply. And after clicking the button Apply, you click here on the button Re-Optimize on the menu on the top of the software. By doing the re-optimization, the software is going to compute again the alignment of the images using this additional information that you added by clicking there, and very likely is going to improve the results, especially when you regenerate the dense point cloud as well as the 3D mesh. So how many of these points do you need to do? For a project, you could do like 0 of them. It works if you do nothing. However, if you see that at some areas you don't have a lot of points, it's a bit more too clear, like here, what's happening, there's not a lot of points. Something may have gotten wrong. And in that case, you can help a lot the software by adding a few points. So for a typical project of done with the DJI Capture app, maybe something that sounds reasonable is to add something like anywhere between, well, 0 of course, but 5 to 10 points. That usually is plenty enough to make sure that the whole thing is really well calibrated. So you don't have to do it, but if you do it, there's a chance that you improve the quality of the results. And after that, you can regenerate the step 2 of the processing that includes the point cloud and the mesh. So let's display again the mesh and the point cloud. Now there's another way to further improve the results. The other way is basically, let's look at that. What is happening in this side of the building? As you can see, the first side of the building is pretty nice. Everything is accurate, all the details are there. You even have some very, very small details that are correctly mapped. But on this side of the building, you get a very strange effect. Actually, we are looking at the mesh right now. If you disable the mesh, okay, you uncheck the mesh, and you look at what's happening here, you can see that the points there were no points in this area, and that's because we are in the edge of the mission. And if you wanted to improve at that exact places the results, you would have needed to fly just a few more lines here, and by flying a bit more, you would have enough data, and this data would have made a perfect 3D mesh. Maybe let's look more in this one. In that case, you have enough images, but for some reason, because there was some reflection with the sun and so on, the mesh was not of extremely good quality. And if you look like, it's also the point cloud, which are, the mesh is derived from the point cloud, and the point cloud are not perfect. They are a bit doing some weird stuff there. So one thing you can do is you can use this densified point cloud tool, and you can delete the points which are causing the weird artifacts. And by deleting these points, if you then go in process and you regenerate the textured mesh, when you regenerate the texture mesh, you'll see that you won't have this weird wobbly artifact anymore, and the surface is going to go very likely in the right place it should be, and the texture is going to look nice. So this is another way. After you've done the manual type point, we first really recommend to do that. Then you generate a point cloud, and the point cloud you can do still a bit of editing like I just did now by removing some points that look like artifacts, and then you can basically generate the full 3D texture mesh, and you'll have a better looking model. So this is when you need to do more advanced editing for very difficult projects. Another thing you can do when you have the desktop app that you cannot do in the 3D viewer that is online is, if you click on the icon on the top there, you can create an animation trajectory. And if you follow simply what's written on the wizard, basically you can go on one spot and you can then make an animation trajectory. You can replay it so you can see how it's going to look like. And if you're happy with the animation you just did, then you can render it. And by rendering it, you'll basically make an MP4 or AVI file that you can then directly upload to YouTube to share to other people. Finally, a last thing I'd like still to show of things you can do with Pix4Dmapper is measurements. For that, you have to load the point cloud, and you can also, if you want, display on top of it the triangle mesh. Here's the three measurement tools that we have right now in the software. One is for lines, the other is for surfaces, and the last one is for volumes. So, for example, if you want to know the height of this building, you can go from bottom to the top. That's the line. And you've got a height of 17.6 meters. If you want to make sure that the places that you clicked is actually really the edges of the building and not some other things, you can again use the ray cloud, which is our interface to do so. And you can, just as I did for the type point, you can also refine the measurements in the images. And if you do that, if you do this manual refinement in the images, and we did that for a lot of experiments where we tested also the quality of the reconstruction that we do of the camera of the DJI Phantom, you can achieve in many measurements an accuracy of just a few centimeters. And so you can do measurements in this whole scene and make sure that actually it really matches with what is the reality. And you can get something like very close to a few centimeters of accuracy. And this is also valid for surfaces. So that's measuring a surface as well as measuring volumes. Finally, I'd like to show maybe after this project that was a single flight, I'll show a slightly more ambitious project. So this is already much bigger, and you can see this was combining something like 1, 2, 3, 4, something like 5 flights done one after the other with the Capture app, and then merged together. And this is the point cloud. That's the resulting point cloud that we can see there. For how to merge different projects, then this is already much more advanced topic, and we have plenty of documentation on our support website, support.pix4D.com, on how to combine these different projects together. All right. So these are most of the elements of the Capture app. And if there's anybody having any question, I'm really happy to actually read the question that you send in the chat button there. And as I can see, there was already some questions during the webinar. I will answer a few of them live there, but feel free to add more questions in the chat box there, and I'll read them loud and answer directly. All right, so let's pick a few questions. Can you mix a nadir mission, so one of a grid flight, together with a free flight mission? So yes, that's perfectly possible, and that makes a lot of sense in many scenarios. For example, the one I just showed there, if we wanted to have a better looking crane, there I would have needed to fly a bit closer to the edges of the crane, and by that I would have done a free flight, and there it would have made sense to combine a free flight mission together with a gridded one. And so you have to do first a gridded mission with the app, and then you do a free flight mission with the app again, and then you follow the instruction on support.pix4D.com on how to merge properly. Actually, there is a whole webinar about this topic on how to merge things, different flights that are quite dissimilar, and that was given a few months ago on how to properly do this merge. But as a tip, just something you can know, is that to do this merge, you would need to use very likely, so it may happen that everything works automatically, but we would suggest to use some manual type points, just as I did, to improve the quality of the project. Okay, let's see another question. I would like to know if it's possible to rotate the maps. So yes, it's possible to rotate the maps. For that, you need to go in the Pix4Dmapper, in the settings, which is a bit hidden. We agree with that. Right now in the current application, maybe I can show here. In the current application, it's in this little button which is on the top called Settings. If you click this Settings button, then you can basically choose the angle of degree of the map. By doing that, you can turn the things, and we are right now working on improving this interface to make it not as a button hidden in the settings, but we'll try to make it something as really something you can just, with your 2 fingers, you can rotate the grid mission. So this is coming soon. Okay, somebody asking about how to import the results in Autodesk Civil 3D. So there are multiple ways of doing it. Autodesk Civil 3D supports normally 3 types of inputs that are generated from our software. The first one is the point cloud, right? So if you look at the point cloud, it's basically, the point cloud is more or less the same as if you had a LiDAR point cloud. Autodesk supports somehow, well, the latest version of Autodesk supports somehow well the point cloud. It's not going to be as beautiful as in the ray cloud that you can see there, but you can somehow visualize, and in our support website we have a way, we show all the instruction on how to import the things. The other thing you can import in Autodesk is also the mesh. But when you generate the mesh, the 3D mesh, in the option of the software, make sure that you select a small number of triangles, because Autodesk is not able to use a ton of, if you try to load a huge mesh in Autodesk, it's going to be hard to view them all. So make sure that here you select a very small size for the number of triangles in your mesh, and also a small texture. Finally, and maybe that's probably the best option, if you want to import not the whole thing but just a few measurements in Autodesk, what you can do is you can create polylines like this one, which make the side of the most of the dimension of the building. And then this line, you can export it as a DXF file that can be easy read in Pix4D in Autodesk. Somebody asking about what is the UAV product model that I have there in the presentation. So this is the DJI Phantom Vision Plus. You can know that it's the Plus because it has the gimbal, the camera with the gimbal, and this is the product that's currently supported by the app. Does the Phantom 2 Vision Plus work with your app right off the box? Yes. There's no single modification, no hardware, no software. You don't need to do anything. It works right out of the box. You don't need to change anything. Somebody asking about, since I talked at the beginning, how far does the Wi-Fi last? So the DJI with the remote control comes together with a Wi-Fi extender, and usually the range is a few hundred meters, but that depends a lot if you are in your environment. Some environments are only like 100 meters, and some environments can support easily 300, 400, 500 meters. So that depends. Other situation with the UAV that can go at any places depending on the internal GPS, only on the Phantom Vision Plus, or is it on the other quadcopters? So right now we have most experience with our app with this drone, since this is the one that we are supporting right now. However, the issue of the GPS that may get a bit crazy. This is not something which is unique to a single drone. This is something that is just inherent to this GPS technology that we're using, and that's sometimes because of the bounces and everything is not as reliable as it should be. So to make everybody not too much scared, this happened very, very rarely. So out of the thousands of the users that used our app with the drone, right now we got 3 cases out of thousands where it happened. So, or a bit something like 3 to 12 cases where it happened. So it's not something that is common. That's something where you are only in very, very specific situation where this type of things happens. Okay. Is the possibility to use the ground station feature in the DJI Vision app to program a route for the Phantom to fly? So the DJI Phantom has indeed a ground station possibility if you change the hardware and so on, but unfortunately it's not supported in the SDK of DJI, so that's why we cannot have it available. If the mission ends in the middle of the flight, is there a way to resume where it left off? So if the Wi-Fi is broken in the middle of the connection, then the drone will keep connecting back the Wi-Fi again. And in many cases, it will be fine. It's just be a few images missing in the middle of the project. However, if this does not happen, or if you really need these images, then right now the only way is to restart the mission from start. Is it possible to combine photos from the Vision Plus with photos from an iPhone 6 from the ground? That's also a very interesting question. Yes, it is possible. For that, however, it's not exactly incredibly easy. It requires some skills and some deep understanding of what's happening. And there is, again, a whole webinar dedicated to how to merge images from the drones and from the ground. Let's look at the new questions. Can I export to 3ds Max? Yes, our 3D mesh that I just showed there. So this 3D mesh can be imported without any issue into 3ds Max, into any 3D animation software. When altitude becomes adjustable in the future, will you get better mapping details by flying the mission closer to the ground? Yes, yes you will. You will get much more details by flying closer to the ground. However, you will not be able to fly as large distances than what you can do now, because the closer to the ground you fly, the more pictures you need to take, and the more pictures you need to take, the slower you have to fly. So basically, when we will allow the Pix4D capture app to fly at a lower altitude, we will have to increase a lot the image capture rate, and as well as decrease the speed of the drone. And that's basically the reason why we didn't put it from the scratch, from the start, the altitude change. The main reason for that is because we want to make sure that the mission can always be successful, and this is why we're spending a bit more time to make sure that we are doing this thing correctly of adjusting the speed, the image rates, and the altitude, which are all interlinked. And when this will be happening, then it's going to be really nice, as you can make really also much closer range projects. Okay, somebody asking about how to export the point cloud in ArcGIS. Well, we have, again, if you go on support.pix4D.com, you type in our search bar ArcGIS, and there you have all the different articles that clearly say step by step what are how are the ways to import all of our results in ArcGIS and other software. What are the recommended PC hardware required for a project like shown in the webinar? That's also, again, a very good question. So a project like that, let's check. We don't have it right there. Neither there. So a project like that would maybe take something like maybe an hour of processing if you do it at full resolution with as much possible resolution and everything. It's probably going to take a good hour of processing on a very good desktop computer. So let's say a $2,000 desktop computer. So something like an i7 with 6 cores and NVIDIA graphic card. If you do it on a laptop, then you very likely will have to, it will double the time, just because the laptop don't have as powerful CPUs and graphic cards than computers. So maybe on a project like that, it's going for a 60 image project, maybe it may take up to 2 hours, but it may be also much faster. What's the difference between the Phantom, the Bebop, and the 3D robotics drones? Which one gives the best accuracy? Well, I'm going to answer the answer of the software. Basically, the drone is just a way to carry a camera, and then it just depends on the camera. And actually, it's not that even the camera is not that important. It's the distance from the camera to the object. So what's even more important than having the best camera is probably having the best flight planning tools. And that's also the reason why we are developing this capture app, is to make sure that everybody can have a very good flight planning tool dedicated to do 3D models and mapping. Will Pix4D work with a MacBook Pro using Windows? So yes, this is already working now. So if you have a MacBook and you install Boot Camp, then you can no problem use Pix4Dmapper desktop software. And however, we are right now developing also the native Mac version, so you don't have to boot into Boot Camp. Do you need to use the gimbal for better accuracy? So no, a gimbal does not improve at all the accuracy of the 3D model. The only thing it does is basically it makes sure that the images are taken from the top down. However, if you want to do also merge with free flight projects, so you can also have better sides of buildings and so on, then it makes kind of lot of sense to use the gimbal, such you can rotate the camera to have something like a 45-degree angle to your project. How to organize a survey in a bigger area than 200 by 120 meters in the field? Okay, to do that, I would suggest to fly first with the maximum setting of the grid, get the grid, then you need, I guess, a lot of batteries with your Phantom, and then you recreate a second grid just next to it. But I would strongly suggest, and maybe that's what you can see in the project that we have there. Let me show this project. So this is exactly what we did there. The area is much bigger here. What you can see is between the different flights, we tried to have as much overlap as possible. So when you do a grid and you do another grid, it's good to have at least one line of images which are overlapping one each other. It makes everything much better and easier. If you don't have this line of overlapping between the two projects, then it's going to be a bit harder to make sure that everything gets processed together. So I would really advise to do it in the difference. Very interesting question. In free flight, how do you trigger the drone to take pictures? Actually, in free flight mode, the pictures are triggered automatically based on the GPS. So every time that we see that the drone has moved a certain distance, and I think the default settings is a few meters, this drone is going to take automatically a new picture by itself. And this way we avoid something which is really bad for 3D reconstruction is when you have a ton of images in the same area and you have a blob of images. This actually makes a lot of errors and makes it much more difficult. So by doing this thing, basically we make sure that every time you move the drone, a picture is automatically triggered every time that, that you move a bit further away. For mapping application, what is the advantage of Inspire 1 over Phantom 2 Vision? So the Inspire 1 has a slightly better camera than the Phantom Vision. As well, it doesn't have as much field of view. So the field of view is slightly smaller. That means that at the same altitude, you're going to have a bit more ground sampling distance, meaning a bit more details. However, also the thing you need to know about the Inspire 1 is that you have a little bit less flight time. So you will not be able to cover the same amount of area as a Phantom Vision Plus. So that depends. If you need a bit more accuracy, then probably the Inspire 1 makes more sense. If you need more covering places, then I guess that the Phantom Vision Plus makes there a bit more sense. Would improve the 3D modeling of building by flying in one direction and then fly again in the transverse direction and merge the two data sets. So yes, that's actually a good thing. And in addition, even in the grid, when you look at the settings in the grid flight, you can take the camera and you can tilt it. And we would recommend, if you do a double grid flight on the same area, something that can improve quite a bit the result is to fly with the camera not at 90 degrees, but something like at, let's say, 60 degrees. By flying at 60 degrees, so the drone is gonna take the images on one direction and the other direction with 60 degrees, so you'll have more texture on the facade. And then if you do another grid, which is rotated of 90 degrees versus the first one, and you do again this grid, then you'll have all the 4 angles of your buildings taken with a 60-degree angle. And there, of course, the accuracy and the resolution on the facade is going to be much more improved. If you want to use the free flight mode, then a recommended flight path is to go in a circle around the project. That actually makes even more sense. All right, so I'd like to apologize again for the beginning for this technical inconvenience of the webinar, and I'd like to thank you all very much for attending this webinar on the app. We are doing a lot of progress. I hope that we are able to communicate enough the different changes that appear in the software, in the iOS, Android, and also the way we handle the whole thing. But we are really very excited about our app, what it brings. Also, I hope that the quick preview in the field of the model is going to be a very used and very useful feature. And there's a lot of things still to come for this year, I think, with the support of additional drones, more cameras, more processing, more 3D results, more accuracy and more speed. And anyway, thank you very much for attending this webinar. Have a great day, and see you in 2 weeks for the next webinar. The next webinar is going to be more open subject discussion webinar, where you are able to ask in advance a few questions, and where we're more going to talk about general topics, as well as discussion on the further development of Pix4Dmapper. This is the one in 2 weeks, and there will be another one in a month. And the next topic of the next month's webinar is going to be about precision agriculture. So we are going to release a new version of our software, Pix4Dmapper 1.4, which will have a lot of improvements for agriculture in the index calculator. And I'm very excited next month to talk about this, and I think there's very interesting things to say about it. Anyway, thank you all for your time. Have a great day, and hope to see you for the next webinar. Bye now. Thank you.